So I says to him, I says,
That's right. Well, many thanks to both of you for joining. Anthony Del Col, wonderful to have you here, and Stefan Tosheff, welcome back.
Hey, hey.
hey, hey,
Yes,
we're so happy to be
I,
on the show.
I can already tell that you have a creative friendship relationship that goes way back. I can tell that there's a warmth in the room and a sense of community that's already been created.
Yeah, what a
That's
whole year.
it's the smell it's the smell of maple syrup since we're both Canadian.
Ah, I see,
It
I
warms
see.
us up. It warms you up.
Nice. Nothing like a little maple syrup to do that. It sticks things together. It makes the projects work. Well, curious about Romeo versus Juliet, not Romeo and Juliet.
Mm.
So an interesting direction, an interesting take. And I know, Anthony, you've worked in the world of Shakespeare before with Kill Shakespeare. So I'm curious about how this project came to be.
Romeo versus Juliet came to be because Kill Shakespeare, which I had co-created with Conor McCreary, another Canadian. I know you just way too many Canadians mentioned on this podcast already. I think we've already capped it out at three. Conor and I created Kill Shakespeare years ago. We came up with a concept, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but 2003. We worked on the concept for a few years, launched as a comic book series in 2010. We then spun it off into five graphic novels, a board game, a stage show that's played all over the world, an audio drama with Audible Germany, and then it was in development hell with Universal and some other partners. So we did all that, and then back just around the time of the pandemic. We went through some not problems, but the project was sort of put on the back burner by a lot of companies, especially our former comics publisher. And it took Connor and I a couple years to get all the rights back. We successfully were able to get everything, the comic rights, the film and TV rights, game rights, everything back in about 2022, I think it was. And at that time, I was, it had been a few years since I'd worked on anything with revolving around Kill Shakespeare. And I sat back and was like, okay, well, there's a chance that we can play in the sandbox again. What do I want to do? What kind of story do I want to tell? What's the best thing for this? And really, it was a central image that came to mind. A high noon style standoff between Romeo and Juliet. This happens often with me where it's just like a certain image or moment comes to my mind. It's like, okay, what is that? And then I want to build upon it. And it was that central image of Romeo and Juliet staring down off at each other, prepared to kill the other person. And I was like, okay, whoa, what is the story and how can I tell it? And then I kind of work backwards from there. So I've been wanting to write something in the Western genre for years, and so I realized, hey, it's a Western, Elizabethan Western or Shakespearean Western, and then everything kind of came together. I looked at the tropes of the genre, the some of my favorites, and one of them I realized was, of course, the Magnificent Seven.
Mhm.
It's a hallmark of the genre. Seven Samurai, that sort of thing too. And I realized, wait a minute, that's what Kill Shakespeare kind of is. I mean, you're rallying together your friends against the enemies, and it's a murder's row of all these great characters, or the Justice League of Shakespeare. But yeah, so I mean, that was basically the genesis of it was that central image, and then building the story up from there, and figuring out who I knew Juliet would be there. I knew it would be Romeo. Who else would be in there? It'd be Hamlet and everyone else, and kind of put the story together from that moment.
I usually ask what makes a comic sort of like the ideal space for a story, but it sounds like having that central image was part of that.
I had this conversation. Actually, I just had this conversation a couple of hours ago with some people in the audio space. Um, for comic story, yeah, it has to be visual. There has to be like a visually interesting elements to it. When I come up with story ideas, because I work in different mediums, I work in comics, I work in audio, I work in a bunch of other things. The first question I have is like, is this audio? Is this comic book? That sort of thing. And if it's got a huge, interesting visual element to it, I'm like, okay, that's what's going to make it a comic. So in this one here, not only is it just the visual of the standoff between the two of them. But there's, like it's about the this border town nunnery that Juliet is tasked with protecting. She has to rally together her old allies, Hamlet, Othello, Puck, and others. But then, like there's something interesting. There's something rotten in the state of the nunnery. Like, what is it? And so I always try to come up with what's the most interesting visual element to it. And that's, of course, where I'll throw the baton over to Stefan. I would say Stefan, I know. We have a love-hate relationship that way. But no, so I mean, that's why yeah, what also works well in comics is like you have to, once you get to know your artist or know who you're working with, then that can also influence the visuals. Like as soon as I knew he was on board this project, I was like, wait a minute, I want to create images and visuals and moments that'll really lean into his strengths. And yeah, so for me, that's what really makes it a very visual medium.
The answer is green goo.
Ah,
It's always
nice.
that's what all comics need, just some green goo. And
All of life, really, when you think about it.
yeah, yeah, it really solves a lot of problems. Do not go to my bathroom. That's where I keep mine. It's mine. I will not share it.
Is this a metaphor?
I wish it was.
No, he's speaking
Any
literally. He's speaking literally.
Yeah.
any particular direction that you were able to take, Stefan, in the imagery and the visuals that you wanted to bring? And
Well, it
how
was
is it
oh,
working with Stefan, by the way? That's a two-parter.
right. I'll do the first
You
part.
do the first part, and I'll do the second part. I will base my answer upon the first part.
Well, it was pitched to me as a Western, right? And to
Mhm.
do like, so it's like a real mashup of aesthetics, which is fun for me. So it has like Shakespearean aesthetics. A lot of the clothing in Shakespearean plays and like of that time, I will I will say pretty whack. So it was nice to have that a combination with a Western aesthetic because everyone loves a cowboy. That's just cool looking, and so like, but mostly it was for me it was like getting to use like the color palettes of like 20th century paintings of westerns as like a real inspiration jumping off point for the whole thing. So visually that's where I was coming at it from. I was going for almost like a Mike Mignola Caravaggio-esque lit version of a cowboy town. I don't know if it worked. I tried it. We'll see. We'll see if
It
people like
worked.
it.
It
It
worked.
worked. Thanks. Great. So yeah, that's where I was at.
To answer the second part, when Stefan came onto the project, he promised me my own personal green goo. He hasn't followed through on that. So, long story short, I'm very upset that he's on the project. No, in all seriousness, I mean, Stefan's been great to work with. I think a perfect example because he was just talking about the looks and the wardrobe of the characters, the costumes, the wardrobes of the characters. I remember we went through. I was like, okay, well, it's a Western, so we need cowboy hats, but cowboy hats wouldn't have been around during Shakespearean time. So what can we come up with? And it was Stefan who went off and did a bunch of research. And it's like, well, what about this? Or what if it could be this? Or it could be like the pilgrim hats. And that's why we came up with a really cool look for some of the characters, some of the baddies. So it's got it, we've incorporated hats, but they're not cowboy hats, but they're historically accurate, but the whole Western vibe comes across through it. So that's one of the great things is that he was able to kind of blend like an Elizabethan era with like an American turn of the century Western.
Yeah, and there's even some like Japanese like pre contact like type of architecture as well, just because we can do whatever we want. So we're just doing a big mashup of all sorts of cultures. There's stuff that doesn't make sense that it should be there, but we're putting it there.
I kind of wonder if the reason that we've thrown a lot of the Japanese architecture in there and there's a lot of influence in terms of Asian design. I wonder if that's just because Seven Samurai is such a pivotal work of art. I wonder if that's sort of like subtly kind of pushed me to make those suggestions to you.
I that
But
would make sense.
that would make
That makes
complete
perfect
sense. Yes,
sense.
that would make
Yeah.
complete sense. Yes.
You're talking about kind of like I hesitate to use the word multiverse, but the Shakespeare multiverse of not just Romeo and Juliet, but now we have Othello that's pulled into the mix. We have all of these other characters. We have Puck. So, a particular Shakespeare play or character that resonates most with you?
Anthony, you want to go first?
That's the one that's in this, or that's not in this, or
Any
any.
from the
Uh,
Pantheon, from the
from the
multiverse.
Pantheon. Okay. I'm going to give a cliched answer. I apologize in advance for this.
No
Uh,
worries.
for, I mean, since I first got into Shakespeare when I was in high school, and very early on, I realized that Othello was my favorite play of Shakespeare.
Mhm.
To me, it was the most dramatically interesting, pure emotion between the characters. There was nothing fantastical about it. It was very grounded that way. It was just pure emotion, jealousy, greed, et cetera, lust, revenge, that sort of thing. Um, but in working on Kill Shakespeare and then now on Romeo versus Juliet, it's made me realize that Hamlet is, I know it's, again, this is the cliche part. Hamlet is to me, Hamlet, I think, is the greatest character ever created. Just walking contradictions. One moment he's depressed and sad. The next moment he's a clown. The next moment
Mhm.
he's talkative and you can't shut him up. The next moment he's morose and in the corner drinking or doing drugs, like whatever it is. Like just a walking contradiction. And that's why I think he's the most fascinating character ever created. And that's why he's the one that's always been the most appealing to me to create and to write for. I mean, that's why Stefan did such a great job, is the introduction of him in Romeo versus Juliet, where he's kind of hedging. He's like, oh, to be, almost like a to be or not to be. He's flipping a coin, like, should we kill him or not kill him? Like, that's so
Mhm.
Hamlet. And of course, we pay that off in the ending too. But yeah, he's to me, he's my favorite character to write for, just because he is the greatest character ever written.
Nice.
Nice. Uh,
Stefan?
I like Puck because he's a little scallywag.
Mhm. Mhm. Always
Um,
messing with things.
Yeah,
he is, yeah, in this story and then in the past ones. What was interesting about this is we've changed the look and the feel of Puck. Because in the original story, he's more like a
you,
fairy. He's more like something like a Guillermo del Toro character. And in
Mhm.
this one here, he's a little more human, but he's also a little more playful because he comes across as human when we meet him. But then, of course, we find out that there's more than meets the eye with him. But yeah, so he's the character that's probably changed the most from the original Kill Shakespeare series to this one, both physically and then just the what the character's doing. But yeah, and then Stefan knocked it out of the park with his designs.
thanks, man. Yeah, we don't actually go into what happened to him between the stories, so I don't know when I don't know when you're gonna get to that story, Anthony, but it's there.
It's there. One of the difficult things is that we were limited to this. We were only given 120 pages to work with.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Ideally, I would have loved to have been given another 20 or 40 or another 120 pages,
Oh,
because and Stefan could have done it all in 1 month.
yeah.
Um, no, I mean, ideally would have loved to have had more space because again, I mean, I would have loved to have had more of Othello in there. I mean, we have him in here. He's introduced in this one where he's fighting the bear from Winter's Tale. Just a classic scene. Again, Stefan knocked this one out of the park. But yeah, I'd love to see more of Othello. I would have loved to have written more for Othello in this. I would have loved to have written more for Puck, more for Hamlet, more for Romeo, more for all these characters. But really, you only have a certain amount of time. There's certain story beats that you have to hit. More importantly, there's certain emotional beats that you have to hit, and it's Juliet's story more than anyone else's. As she's grappling with her past, she's grappling with her future. Who was she? Who is she today? Who's she going to be? Can she be a mother or not? Spoiler alert: she's pregnant. I don't think that's a huge spoiler alert. But yeah, so it's all these questions. So Unfortunately, in this sort of story, you have to spend most of your time with your main character. But yeah, I mean, there's whether it's Puck, whether it's any of them. I mean, I would love to have spent like Hermia. I would have loved to have spent more time with each and every one of them. That's what's great about Shakespeare is that he created the ultimate characters.
And may the storytelling continue in some form or other beyond Romeo versus Juliet.
That's the dream. That's the dream. I mean, I will say like we're very lucky. We were very lucky to have been able to put out 5 volumes of Kill Shakespeare. I'm very proud of the series, and now this is 6 volume. I mean, technically now it's 3 volumes because you got the Kill Shakespeare first folio came out last October. That collects the first 2 volumes. Second folio comes out in October. Now we have Romeo versus Juliet. So technically, only ones that are in print right now are there's 3 volumes. I'm making this very confusing. I apologize. Um, but no, I'm very lucky. I feel fortunate to have been able to tell this story with a team like with a team like teammates like Stefan and Becca and Dawn and everybody else on the squad. But yeah, we'd love to tell more. I mean, Connor and I sat down just before working on Romeo versus Juliet and kind of mapped out what another 4 volumes would look like. And that would be the dream, but we have to just make sure that people go out and buy and that they read and they buy or they rent or take out from the library, whatever it is, Romeo versus Juliet. So if you're
Yeah,
listening to this or watching this, Canadians need some cash.
yeah.
That's right.
Go
That's
buy it
right.
online or go to your local comic store and order it.
Yep.
I know here in Vancouver it's at Lucky's and at Golden Age, and I'm going to be selling it this weekend at a comic convention, the Rain City Comic Con at Yale Town Roundhouse on Saturday.
Oh,
So
great.
there you go.
One of the things, Jason, I don't know if you're aware of, the comics industry has been going through an interesting time in the last few months. With
Hmm.
specifically with Diamond Comics, has been going through bankruptcy protection, and our publisher Gemstone is not part of Diamond, but it's part of the family. So it hasn't gone through the bankruptcy protection process, but it's been affected by it. Yeah, I mean it's been very it's it's almost a Shakespearean drama in terms of like one company was going to buy it, then they pulled out, then another company bought it, then there were lawsuits, and then Diamond is the lawyers decided to go with company A, and then the company A then pulled out the last minute, and now it's company B, and it's a huge mess. So we've been sort of caught up in all that. For instance, Stefan didn't get his books until yesterday for a show this weekend.
Yeah,
So yeah,
but
there's
I got
been
him.
you got
But I
him.
got him. I
So
got him.
it has a happy ending.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Well, speaking of happy endings, I promised you about 20 minutes. Did we miss anything that we should be sure to include? Any online spaces that you'd like to mention for the two of you, or anything that we missed?
You can Google me very easily. It's just my name, and all everything you can follow me on will be right there.
You can
That's
also
my
reach
plug.
you can also reach him at greengoo.com.
Don't
Yes,
tell
yes.
people about
It's a
green
good one.
goo. That's my green goo. I'm not sharing the green goo. That's for me and my bathroom.
It's a live stream of his green goo as we
With
um
cast announcements throughout
with
the whole
cast
time.
announcements. Yes, that's true.
There is green goo in the book. I'm not
There's
joking.
green. Yes, yes, yes.
There is green goo.
That's green.
So
This is
that's
great.
a good
Is there
reason
maple
to read it.
syrup? Is
No,
there maple syrup?
no, it hasn't been invented yet.
The green
Ah,
goo tastes like maple syrup. How about that?
I don't like that.
I like it. I like it. What is
In
Soylent Green?
what is something green? I mean, for in terms of additional things, I mean, for those that are still listening, if you're still listening, if you're putting up with us, I know because Stefan and I can be a handful. If you're still listening, and you're not familiar, I mean, we've talked about what the concept. It's Kill Shakespeare, action adventure story with all of Shakespeare's heroes and villains together, all in this world. I mentioned the fact that we have a stage show and a board game and all that stuff. If you've read Kill Shakespeare, great. You're going to be able to get into Romeo versus Juliet. Technically, it's a continuation. If you haven't read Kill Shakespeare, do not fret. Don't worry. And you don't actually feel, you shouldn't be compelled or feel as though you need to go out and read the first folio or read all the previous books in order to get into Romeo versus Juliet. It's been designed as a gateway or an on-ramp into the Kill Shakespeare universe. And so yeah, you don't have to worry about that. And if you know nothing about Shakespeare, or if you hated studying Romeo and Juliet in school, Get thee to your bookstore because this is the first Romeo and Juliet story that you're actually going to enjoy.
It
It's
has
the
pictures.
it has pictures, it has a final
That's right.
showdown between the two. I mean, it's not love at first sight, but will be hate it at final sight. We don't know. I mean, everything culminates in this high noon standoff, as I talked about. All roads lead to it, where one person will perish. I won't say who that person is. Spoiler, but yeah,
It's
it's
me.
it's it's the green goo. We kill off the green goo at the end. No, it's a lot of fun. I mean, there's some Shakespeare references that those that are familiar with the Bard will enjoy, but if you don't, it's just a lot of fun. I mean, everyone in the world has heard of Romeo and Juliet. They've heard of Hamlet. They've heard of Othello. It's just a fun Western story where, about a woman who's trying to deal with her past and her future, as I said. So it's a lot of fun. And we're Canadian, so we're very nice.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's what you wish Shakespeare always was to begin with.
Exactly. And then if you would like more information, you can go to killshakespeare.com. That's the central hub for everything in the Kill Shakespeare world. I'm on all the socials, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, however if you just Google me, you can find me.
We should get together on LinkedIn. I don't think I've added you
What?
or anyone in like 10 years.
I know. I was going to say, I didn't think you were professional enough to be on LinkedIn.
I'm not.
There is some thumb biting happening
Yeah.
in the room right now.
Still one of my favorite lines. I still,
Yeah, that's a great one.
I pull that out every now and then, and some people are like, ah, and others are like, huh? What are you talking about? Uh, yeah.
Well,
Enough about my
many,
kids,
many,
though. Enough about my kids.
that's right. That's right. Well, many, many thanks to you both, and certainly glad to have you back anytime, individually, as a duo. If you want to invite someone else, any permutation, therefore.
Awesome.
Well, I mean, this is the last time I ever want to see Stefan's mug, so this will probably be the last time. If I come on again, it'll just have to be me. So
It's fine. I have a
I
surgery
understand.
scheduled on the 5th, so
face
we're
off,
good.
face
Yeah.
Wow.
off. We're gonna exchange faces. Yes,
Oh
Oh,
man, you're
I love
nice.
finally
it.
gonna be 6 inches shorter, like you've always dreamed.
Yes, yes. This is what the world's gonna look like to me. What?
That's right. That's right. I'll flip the camera around so we rename the both of you on the next episode. That'll
Perfect.
work.
Yes.
You can
We'll
work on your Nick Cage impression.
we can do impersonations.